Good morning. As you may be able to tell, I am filming on Sunday afternoon, and I want to share with you a wonderful thing that happened this morning. I was at home preparing for the day, and I went to Facebook to share the worship service to my Facebook page so that the folks that encounter our worship service through my Facebook page could find it there. And as I did, I noticed that my daughter Sarah last night had written a rather long, almost essay on Facebook, and I found it so powerful, and it informed my prayers this morning. And so I want you to hear her essay in her own words.
As a criminal justice major in college, I learned about this thing called the principle of ineligibility. It basically means that if I don't have something that I believe I should have, but another population that I think shouldn't have it has it, then why should that be the case? They're ineligible in my mind. And so we kind of separate people into two groups, into eligible and ineligible. And this is particularly true for prisoners. We often say, why should they get a good lunch if school children aren't getting as good of a lunch? And the problem with this is that, if we're talking about a Ticonderoga pencil versus a Papermate pencil, it's not a big deal. Who cares? They both write, they both function just fine, they both meet the needs of putting something on paper. However, if we're talking about other things like food, healthcare, fair living wages, safe home environments, and the ability to get an education, that's where human rights are involved. We don't get to choose who is eligible when human rights are involved. Everyone is eligible because everybody is a human. The child at school and the prisoner both deserve a nutritious lunch that meets all of their needs nutritionally and also tastes decent, because that's a big part of being human, is eating things that you actually like to eat. The person struggling with substance use disorder and the mother of three both deserve health care, and they shouldn't fear going into debt because they needed to seek out health care. The fast food worker and the heart surgeon both deserve a living wage. While their wages may be different, both of them should be able to survive on that if they're working a full-time job. The veteran and the refugee both deserve a home. It's not an either-or situation. Both of them need it, and we should be working to provide it for both of them and not trying to deem who is more eligible. The valedictorian and the boy who dropped out of middle school both deserve the ability to access education. That education may look different, but they both deserve the ability to access it, and we should be working to make it available for both of them. It isn't an either-or situation. It isn't eligible or ineligible. If you're frustrated that you're unable to access a resource that somebody else has, ask yourself what you're really upset about. Are you really upset that they received a resource that they needed, or are you upset that you did not receive a resource that you needed? Would taking the resource away from that individual ensure that you would receive it? Are there other ways to accomplish your goals? Hint, there almost always are. Stop using this false dichotomy and separating people into two camps when you don't have to. It's not useful, and the stigmatized language that tends to get used when you start throwing around blame that way is very harmful. Spread kindness, encourage human rights to be validated for all, and work for unity.
As I read that, I reflected on the fact that that is just a rather long way of saying what Jesus said in a few words in the Golden Rule. Treat other people the way that you would want to be treated yourself. That appears in both the Old and the New Testaments, and it appears in a couple of different forms. My favorite is when Jesus and then later Paul say, love your neighbor as yourself. Whatever you would do for yourself, you should also be willing to do for your neighbor and love your neighbor in that way. And Sarah made me really think about the fact that we don't do that as often. We tend to react with our knees jerking, and you do something to me and I'll come right back hard at you, or some position somebody takes without trying to decide what it is or how it is they got there. I just want to call them an idiot or mock them in some other way. And yet, if we took the time to treat other people the way that we want to be treated, to put ourselves in their shoes, if you will. The Car Talk guys on the radio used to tease and say, never criticize a man until you've walked a mile in his shoes, because that way you're a mile away and you have his shoes. But in fact, if we put ourselves in the position of other people and think about what would it be like to be that person, receiving or not receiving whatever it is. It might soften our hearts toward them. It might bring about a new form of neighborliness. It might bring about new love. And so I invite you this day first to think about ways that you or even we maybe as a society are not good at loving the neighbor as the self, and also think about ways and things that you can do this day to love your neighbor as yourself, and to treat other people as you would have them to be treated. Doing so is certainly the way to having a wonderful world, and we can do that because, of course, God is with us.